Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first video podcast of Casually Die Hard. I'm Damian. This is Ashley. You're seeing us for the first time, and we're joined for the first time on video by two guests that we have here today, David and Eli from Eastern Connecticut Paranormal Society. We've done one paranormal interview. You guys are our second, and we're really excited to pick your brains because we are so intrigued ourselves in the paranormal and everything like that. And I think it's definitely a very fun topic of conversation because you never know what comes next. So David, Eli, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm got my coffee. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we're on the coffee train.
And I will say, you might have interviewed another paranormal team, but this is going to be the definitive interview of a paranormal team.
I'm excited.
See, I love the confidence.
Yes.
The confidence is flowing. That's how I am. I'm like, I'm the best, so nothing else matters kind of thing. So I appreciate the confidence. So just getting started, how did you guys start Eastern Connecticut Paranormal? How long ago? How did you guys get into this field and everything like that?
So actually, I'm one of the co-founders, and Chris was the other co-founder. He unfortunately passed away back in January.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And so him and I actually met on Halloween night back in 2015 at the notorious Enfield Demon House in Enfield, Connecticut.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so house has been on TV. It's still apparently pretty haunted, but I'm very familiar with the house. I spent a lot of time there. But him and I actually met there during an investigation on Halloween, and he knew things that he couldn't possibly know, and I was so impressed. We ended up just maintaining open communication. We decided to form a team. We have very similar backgrounds. He was in the medical corps in the Navy for about 22 years. And I'm in healthcare and science. Okay. So we came together as two scientific people who also have a little bit of psychic stuff going on. So we just decided that there was kind of a need in the paranormal field for that type of mindset and that approach.
Nice. And so you are gifted with psychic gifts, it sounds like.
Yes. And that was something that was actually really tough for me to kind of accept in myself because of my logical side. Yeah. It wasn't until I really was working with Chris over the years that, he would kind of like throw feelers out there, like, say the first name that pops into your head, and I'd be like, Jessica. And then he'd be like, oh, I wrote that down like 5 minutes ago. And I'd be like, wow, shit. Yeah. So it was things like that where he kind of like, there were things that, that I couldn't possibly know that I ended up knowing just by guessing, if you will, and started working with that. And now, since he passed, I'm the only psychic on the team. So it's kind of, he passed the torch to me. Now it's kind of my job to, use what he taught me.
Nice. Yeah. So now over to Eli. How did you get involved then in the investigation process after the founding?
Yeah. So I think I'm the longest tenured member of the team now, right, Dave?
Yeah.
I've been with the group for about half its life. I joined 4 years ago, in 2019, and I met with David and Chris, and the first thing Chris said to me is, "Are you psychic? Because we don't want any more psychics on this team." and actually, the first investigation that we did, we were using different devices. We're using an EMF detector, and we're using that as a communication tool. And I was asking questions and seeing if the lights would go to red after I asked the questions. And I was going along a string of questions. And Chris was in the living room in the dark, like he used to do. And I heard, after I was asking all these questions, getting these answers, I heard him in the other room, and he was like, "Is he freaking psychic?" He's like, "I told you I didn't want a psychic on this group." I think he might have been talking to Dave in there. And so that was my first investigation. But I've been interested in the paranormal since I was 12 years old watching Ghost Hunters, the original TV show. And things kind of came full circle because a couple months ago we investigated a house that was on Ghost Hunters.
Wow, that's cool.
And we got to sort of clean up the mess, that they had made. So that was fun.
That's awesome.
You say mess that they made. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the problem with all these shows is that they come in there, they're there for a short amount of time, and then they never talk with these people ever again.
Right.
So our model, we have clients that we worked with 4 or 5 years ago that we're still in touch with, that we're still helping, and it's really important to keep that, that communication open, because people are gonna, experience things several years later,
Right.
And in this case, what was happening in that house was that people were fighting in the house, and it stirred up energy in there. So we had to come back in there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So speaking of paranormal shows on TV, that's sort of something that we watch it. We watch them all the time for entertainment purposes, and I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this do as well. So, what do you think of them? Are they exaggerated? How exaggerated are they? And what red and green flags should people look for when it comes to validity?
Dave has really strong opinions about this.
Yeah, I do.
But it seems to be the general consensus of independent investigators versus the people on TV.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised.
It's so I come from two perspectives. So we got selected for a few TV pilots in the past. There was one in particular that I think all of us interviewed for, and then I got through till literally the final round. And I did all the psych evals they require. I think the plot of the show was they were going to take 3 people, a medium or 2 different types of mediums, and then like a skeptic, and they were going to drop us in a haunted asylum for like 3 days and 3 nights or something by ourselves.
Okay.
And they were going to have us all self-film it, and no running water or electricity. We just have to bring like bottled water in, and they wanted to see how like psychologically it affected you.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, this all sounds great. Like, I think it's interesting. Like, if you think I'm going to be the person that backs out before 3 nights, like, you're out of your mind. And it wasn't until I got to that final like piece of paper that I had to sign where they started saying like, oh, make sure if you hear noises like this, you react like this.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh no. Okay. So now I got that gut feeling that said, they're trying to obviously sensationalize it for television, make it entertaining.
Right.
But I'm like, that's not why I do this. I do this to find the truth. I do this to help people. I don't need 15 minutes of fame to, just because I'm on TV and get my ego boosted. So I opted out. That's 2 TV shows that I opted out of because they were trying to basically fake or control how people reacted to bumps in the night. And with that being said, too, there's that experience that I have, but then there's also, I know some of the investigators personally that are on TV. I won't say names, several different groups. And in light of new evidence, they don't change how they investigate.
Okay.
Meaning, in the sciences, if you learn new information or something that is a logical explanation for something, you then have to take that information and you have to incorporate it into your new body of evidence and then adjust the way you're investigating or approaching something. And they'll take that information and just say, okay. And then they just go back to doing whatever they were doing because of kind of blissful ignorance. And that to me is like, that's not my approach. My approach is, again, to find the truth and to be honest with people. And I'm kind of quoted as saying, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, it's true. Like in sciences and healthcare, there's so much we don't know. So if someone can explain something to me and I can learn from it and then incorporate that into my way of thinking, then that's great. But most people aren't down to do that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of self-reflection. So yeah, I don't know. The shows are, it's amazing how like they go in and they always, always, always get evidence. Paranormal
Yeah.
activity literally means beyond normal, right? Paranormal. If it was common, it would just be normal.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like when these people are like, you know, giving presentations every year and they have like tons and tons of evidence, I'm like, I could probably debunk 95% of that right now.
Yeah.
So I just, you know, it's sensationalized, it's for entertainment, but beyond that, not sure.
So with a follow-up to that, with some of the stuff that they do capture, like outside of the bumps in the night kind of thing, you know, the knocking, oh, what was that kind of reaction stuff and everything. When it comes down to the actual evidence that they do capture, like EVPs or shadow figures or something like that, and I'm not trying to say like all of it's fake or anything like that, because obviously some of it has to be real in order for it to come up. But how much do you think of that is actually real versus being a staged like shadow figure or something like that, or even something that might be edited in post? Like, do you think that that's a possibility and stuff like that? Because I'm a little bit more skeptical when it comes down to some of the evidence that they capture, especially like the SLS camera. Like, I feel like that's so easy. That's so easy to kind of manipulate. So I kind of want to know your thoughts on that kind of aspect as somebody that's done this.
Yeah. So what I could say is like scientifically, right? Because I'm going to always kind of refer to that. The devices that even we use, like the EMF meter, the SLS camera, which we don't even use that, by the way, but you know, anything that we use, we cannot actually say that those are proving the existence of anything. All we can basically say is like, oh, I captured like an anomaly of some kind. I'm not really sure what it is, but I can't definitively say that it's a ghost. So, I mean, even just browsing like Reddit, you can find like Ask Me Anythings from people who have like been video editors for some of these paranormal shows.
Oh, wow.
And they say that it's mainly like their job is like hours and hours and hours of just finding ways to actually make this like little clip look like really scary and like impressive.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think most of it is post. You know, it's made in post. Like you said, I mean, are they capturing like maybe they capture a shadow figure or something? Like, yeah, sure, maybe. But like what went into that? Like for us, there has to be like a couple things that are coupled together. So like say Eli says, I feel cold over my left shoulder. And then at the same time he says that, we snap a picture with our professional photographer will snap a picture. So it's someone who knows their camera, knows what they're doing, knows the lighting environment. And then she captures an orb over his shoulder right when he said that. And at the same time, we also get an EVP. Now it's three things coupled together that go into that one event. Now we're starting to talk maybe something weird is going on.
Right.
You know, you just take like one photo or you just get one video of something. It's like, that could be anything.
Yeah. That's where I come at it with it too. So Eli, it's you're the lead investigator of the group. So my question is, what equipment do you think provides the most scientific evidence that is like, okay, yes, this is what I truthfully believe it is? Like, obviously, like EVPs and video and voice recordings and stuff like that, that helps with proving tonality and everything. But like, what pieces of equipment like that do you think give us the most evidence to prove that the paranormal is real?
Yeah. So I would say that since we don't know what we don't know, we can't say that anything is 100%, right? But we have in the past, and this was before I was in the group, but in the past, one of the first big pieces of evidence that they captured was of this little girl called Lillian Rose. And we talked about it in all of our presentations. And in this sort of footage, ECPS captured a little girl looking around the corner and then running away. It's really quick. But the interesting thing is that this footage was captured by 2 different types of cameras. So there was the infrared camera, and then there was the full spectrum camera.
Okay.
And so on the infrared camera, which you can see in the dark, right? It actually was capturing from the other side, where that little girl was in the door opening, and it didn't actually capture anything. But the full spectrum camera actually captured the little girl going across. So I think that, there's this whole source and band of light that we can't see with our human eyes, but that sort of a full spectrum camera can capture. That might be some of the key to it. But I will say about equipment, going back to the ghost shows that are on TV, there's so many different ways that you can manipulate evidence to make it look like things. And in our presentations, we show people the different ways. One example is simple, photography. If you capture something in low light and it's long exposure, you can get things that look like apparitions, right? Because a person might be moving and then, they capture them over a long exposure. We have one of David, and it looks like there's an apparition at the piano. So it's really important to recreate all of the evidence that we do capture, and see if we can debunk it as much as possible. The other thing, and I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but there's this voice recorder called the DR60 from Panasonic. It was created in 1998. For your listeners who don't know, it was like one of the first digital recorders. It's considered like the holy grail of voice recorders, and that is used a lot on TV. If you try to buy it now used, it's like $2,000 on eBay.
Wow.
Oh wow!
But it consistently picks up EVPs and voices all the time. But I personally think that it's kind of a sham. It was made in 1998. It was a really cheap recorder. I think it was like $19. So it's a really bad chip in there. And they use that for EVP evidence all the time on TV.
Yeah. Interesting. So speaking of evidence and equipment and things like that, I've noticed a lot more people using sort of apps to go ghost hunting and capture things. Like one of the ones that I think a lot of groups are using now is Spirit Talker. That is something that I'm a lot more skeptical about. I think that with our phones, like locations can be captured. Things can people can make an app and, you have to allow access to your mic when you're using a lot of these apps. So what do you think of those things? Is there any validity to them?
I'm going to say no. I'm in agreement with you guys. There's too many confounding variables that could explain like how that app is working or how it's picking up what it's picking up.
Right.
It's, again, if I can't control the environment and like really narrow down what's actually causing something to occur, then it's hearsay. I can't I can't say it's paranormal at all.
Yeah, and we've actually I'm sorry, I just wanted to say, like, we've actually sometimes we have a big team, so sometimes we split the team. And there's been times where we don't have like a spirit box with us. That's one of the pieces of equipment that we use. And so we've like used apps out of desperation. And they are crazy. Like, the responses that come out of them just don't make sense. And you get like, ooh, like that's coming out. And, it's a bunch of BS. Especially the free ones. I don't think any of them you can sort of use or count on. You got to count on the actual tried and true equipment, that's actually being used.
Right. I think a lot of those apps just play off our suggestibility.
Right?
Exactly. We love to look for connections. I mean, it's psychology. Yeah. So, you say basement and, oh my God, there's a basement in the house. Like, there must be bodies down there or something. Like we make these crazy connections, and it's like, we can't do that. We have to be as specific as possible. And I tell people that with the psychic stuff too. Like, I could tell you, like, you know, how many people in here have a grandma that died? And it's like, well, probably most of us. So it's like, no, if I'm not giving you specific information that can then be validated through property records like land deeds, obituaries, or some kind of substantial evidence, then it's hearsay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a like kind of cool way to look at it too, with the psychic abilities and stuff like that, because you never truthfully know what's coming through, because it could be somebody that's attached, or like that's related to the person that you're talking to, or it could be just some random jamoke that happened to be in this location that's like, hey, tell this person I said this, or something along those lines. And so back to like the TV comparison, there's a show that's out there, it's called The Dead Files. I'm sure you guys are aware of this one, with Steve DeShavi and now Cindy Kaza. And one of my questions is, do you guys approach an investigation similar to that with you, David, having psychic abilities? Do you do a tour of the location first and try not to have any kind of information? And then do you have your paranormal investigation team go in after you and like try to find validity? Do you work in tandem? Because like with the Dead Files, to me, I feel like there's a missing element to that show where it's like, okay, you're saying all this stuff now, where's the paranormal team to come in like the day after you to try to prove that stuff outside of just the records and everything like that?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm actually kept in the dark completely about like, we have a case tonight that we're doing at a private residence. And I think all I know is it's supposed to be like relatively bad claims, but like these guys, Eli and them, they do all the research. I don't know anything. I don't even know the address I'm going to tonight. So I'll just show up. We have a process. So like, we'll do baseline sweeps. We'll take baseline photos, videos, walkthroughs. We're now at a point where we're starting to get like vlog footage and B-roll and stuff like that, just for business purposes. But I stay completely outside. Actually, I don't go in first at all. I let them do their thing. I actually start kind of meditating on cases a couple days in advance usually. Sometimes that's not even voluntary. I'll just start getting stuff and it's like, oh, I guess we're doing this. So I write down anything that I get. I mark it, date it, any names, anything that may pop up. So when I get there, I show these guys what I wrote down, and then they have it in their head. And then throughout the investigation, they still won't tell me anything. It's not until after the investigation that we can then put things together. So the only thing I'll get from them is like, if I ask a specific question, like, are there claims of a woman falling down the stairs here or something? And then like, yes or no. That's all I want. Don't give me any details, just yes or no. So I at least know I'm on the right track so I could tune in more. That's it. And let me clarify too, my psychic abilities are more so clairsentient than say clairvoyant or clairaudient. So, a lot of people call that an empath. That is for the record, that is a completely separate thing. So in my belief, a psychic empath is someone that can pick up, feelings, emotions on living people, living beings. As soon as you cross that barrier, now you're getting information about spirits. Now you're a medium. So I used to classify myself as an empath, but then, the more I kind of looked into it, the more I discovered how it was working. And I believe they're completely separate entities. But yeah, that's essentially how it works is, anything I write down, anything I get during the investigation, these guys confirm with research. If we can't confirm it with some actual legitimate evidence, then, it's either I'm wrong, or I'm interpreting it wrong, or it's just, maybe that spirit came in from the street and just wanted to say hey or give me some random information. And that's fine. Either way, that's fine. I get what I get and I don't get what I don't get.
And I'll give you guys a good example of when sort of psychic ability and keeping in the dark like really worked. And And this was from, I want to say 2 years ago. We were on a case in South Windsor, Connecticut. And it was a mother and daughter that were experiencing things. It was a multi-generational household. The grandparents lived there as well.
Okay.
When we go in there, at the time when Chris was still alive, Chris and David were outside. And I want to say like the driveway was like 50 feet long. So they were way outside. They were like, at the bottom of the street. And so we went in there. We always do an intake with any of our clients. And we ask them, there's like 35 questions on there. And but when we got there, the daughter started talking about new information that she hadn't even told us on the intake or on the phone. And so she was telling us that she had dreamed about and also seen sort of like they call it like a Slender Man type of figure. Tall, dark shadow figure with a cowboy hat and a bolo tie. And it was freaking her out. And so I just, I took in that information. Later in the night, we were doing a spirit box session, EVP session around the table. And we're asking questions. In the middle of that session, their dog starts growling and towards the backyard. And so I went out there. I didn't see anything. It was pretty dark, but I didn't see anything out there. And Chris was an automatic drawer. So he would just draw in the dark, whatever he was seeing in his head. And so we finished that session and we took a break. We turned on the lights. And I went up to Chris and I was like, what were you drawing over there? And he turns around the pad and it's a dark shadow figure, tall shadow figure with a cowboy hat and a bolo tie.
What?
There's no way he could have known that. I learned that information like that night. We have a Dropbox that we all use. We keep things in there.
Yeah.
But this wasn't even in the Dropbox. This wasn't access anywhere. I learned it like that night as new information. So the fact that he picked on that so specific thing, I almost fainted.
That's amazing.
I would have too. That's incredible.
Yeah. So doing an investigation, I think everybody sort of has this thought in their head that it's better when it's dark at night, when the lights are off. Does an investigation need to be done with the lights off, or can it be done during the day? Is there a better time?
Yeah, so I say the only reason, well, there's a couple of reasons why we investigate at night. One is we all have full-time responsibilities.
Fair enough.
Like that's one. The weekend nights are typically when all 7 of us are most available.
Right.
Two, it is a little easier to get people out of their houses when at night because they can go to a hotel room for the night or something or make plans. So there's that kind of logistical aspect to it. And then really we reduce noise contamination at night.
Yeah.
Right. There's less cars on the road. There's even less like Wi-Fi being used going through the air. There's all these just extraneous noises that we can control more at night.
Right.
That's really the only reason. But we've done investigations during the day and we've still gotten evidence and stuff. It's just now we have more light to kind of deal with when we're taking photos, and
that makes sense too.
Yeah. So it's it.
Interesting. So
okay. I thought you were going to start saying something.
Yeah, no, I am.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So doing investigations, especially like house calls and things like that, would you say that the majority of them are legit, or are people maybe making things a bigger deal in their head than they are?
Both.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like we have kind of part of our mission statement is we never invalidate someone's beliefs or what they're experiencing, because even if they have a psychiatric condition or something, it's still real to them.
Yeah.
So we kind of keep that in mind. We're also only there for like 4 to 6 hours. Like
Right.
on any given night, you're there 24/7. So even if we don't capture anything at all, that's not to say that nothing's happening. It's just to say that either, you know, we're not the ones who are meant to give you that message.
Yeah.
Or there's nothing there, or, you know, but either way, like, we're only there for a short period of time. So we just didn't get anything. Like, and we're kind of the no BS paranormal team. We tell people straight up what we got, what we didn't get. All our findings are public. People can scrutinize them. People can read them, interpret them however they want. Clients get about 10 to 15 page reports sometimes with all of our findings. And we do this all for free. This is just how we do it because we're that thorough and we're that passionate about it, where it's like, here's this report. Now you're free to get a second opinion. We can come back. We can do, you know, we have that documentation.
Interesting.
I think the other thing too that people don't realize, and we've realized from just doing hundreds of investigation over the years, is that you know, true paranormal activity is very, very rare. You know, we don't experience it in every case, and that's why we talk about the TV shows, them experiencing all these pieces of evidence.
Every
like
time.
It doesn't happen like that. There's lots of nights where we're just sitting in an empty house and we're shooting the breeze and nothing is happening. The other thing about paranormal activity as well that people don't realize is that sometimes paranormal activity is self-manifested.
Right.
So, you know, if the husband and the wife, or if a multi-generational family is in there and they're fighting constantly, or we found that if you're, you know, younger kids that are, you know, sort of going through puberty as well, can self-manifest. It's called PK. They're self-manifesting activity because bad energy tends to like align with bad energy. You're like a beacon out there that's inviting things in. So that's another part of it. You can cause paranormal activity to happen as well. And a lot of times when we educate people that, you know, you got to keep things positive in here, you got to stop arguing with each other. They come back to us and they're like, wow, the activity stopped. I don't understand. That's so crazy.
Yeah, no, that's something we were actually talking about the other day.
Yeah.
Is like that self-manifestation.
Yeah, because we were watching something and it's like, you know, you can, once you create that energy has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole theory of paranormal is once you die, your energy doesn't disappear. Like it doesn't just go like it doesn't poof away. It stays. And you know, sometimes it takes a long time for that energy to dissipate and stuff. So when you create all of that negative energy, you're going to have a negative reaction. But if you have a positive house and a positive light and more positivity around you, you're not going to give as much energy off to create all of these things to happen.
Right. And the way that I explain it is kind of like what you said. Everything in nature likes to balance out. So you know, if you have someone who's positive in the house and someone who's negative in the house, they're going to kind of meet in the middle.
Yep.
But if you have two people that are super negative, well, now those general vibrations are way down here.
Right.
So you're always at a lower vibrational state, and then you're attracting more things.
Right.
And I do like how you quoted, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transferred. And that's that first law of thermodynamics. But what people, again, you don't know what you don't know. The second law of thermodynamics directly kind of disputes that.
Oh.
Because it's regarding what's called entropy, which is basically just think of it as disorder. Everything disintegrates over time.
Right.
That's why we age. Everything, time will wither away everything. The universe is undergoing entropy 24/7, which is eventually the universe will collapse on itself for that very reason. So people say like, energy is just transferred. You don't really go anywhere. Like that's true, but also time will cause that energy to dissipate.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is I think the oldest spirit that Chris or I ever communicated with was from the 1400s.
Okay.
Now that's interesting to me because that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why haven't I picked up on anyone from like, BC or, like 400?
Right.
And it's like, well, one, what would you talk about?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
How would you even
Like,
communicate?
how would you communicate?
Right.
Yeah.
There's no way. Like half the time we have to say like, we have to call a flashlight a torch or something, or a
Yeah.
lantern, because they wouldn't know what a flashlight is.
Mhm.
We've gotten people in speaking foreign languages, spirits,
Yeah.
coming through. That's another thing people ask us all the time. Like, how come they always speak English? And we're like, well, they don't.
Yeah.
We get all types of languages.
Yeah.
That's something I always laugh at, is like you see investigators that'll go to like Germany or something like that, and they're speaking German, and it's like, oh well, we didn't really capture any EVPs, and it's like, well, yeah, no shit.
Right.
You're not speaking German.
Maybe you did, you just don't know.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that's like part of our mission is, Eli can tell you, it's pretty tough to get on Eastern Connecticut Paranormal Society. We typically will intern someone for a full year before we even
Wow.
let them on as permanent members.
Yeah.
And Chris and I kind of came up with that concept because everyone wants to be a paranormal investigator, but there's no formal education or anything required to do it necessarily, right? So part of our thing is like, you have to bring something to the table that is new, or like Eli, his in was that he was a journalist.
Okay.
So he had connections, and his degree is in communications, master's degree is in communications.
Master's in communication, yeah.
Right. So he had a formal education. He had a master's degree. And he came from a unique perspective that helps with research, journalism, advertising, all that stuff. So that's how he kind of got in. And then we have you investigate with us, review evidence, all that for a year. And these guys will tell you it's literally a full-time job. We are talking 24/7 in group chat. We're always trying to come up with new things. I give these guys blogs to write. They have side projects to do. It's constant. And I want to know that, okay, yeah, you're passionate about it, but then as soon as you get onto the team as a full-time member, are you then going to just stop doing your responsibilities because now you're like tenured? And so I want to see, like, over a year, like, let's say you go through a really bad breakup. Is that going to then affect how you're doing your job with ECPS?
Yeah.
Like, we all have personal things going on, and I want to make sure that anyone on the team can still stick to what they said they were going to do and continue this work. And Eli, obviously, he's lead investigator now. He's been doing great. But yeah, so we make it pretty difficult to actually get on the team. You have to really bring a unique approach or perspective.
And half the battle is just showing up. Like half the battle is just showing up and putting the effort in. We've had people that have interned for us that miss like 3 investigations in a row and are not doing their share of the evidence review and are not communicating. And it's so rare, like in this post sort of pandemic world now, like seeing this in the job market, but we're also seeing this like on paranormal teams, on volunteer opportunities like this. So.
No, it's so important to have that commitment.
It really is, because like if you're looking at it as like a team, so I come you guys have no way of knowing this, but I come from an independent wrestling background. So I was an independent professional wrestler for a few years and stuff like that. And we don't call it interning, we call it young boying. Like you're a young boy. You gotta set up the ring. You gotta learn how to build the entranceway. You gotta learn how to promote, how to flyer, all that kind of stuff, promote your event. And then it's like, you gotta learn all the backstage stuff. And I started as a security guard, worked as a videographer, a producer of a show, to actually ring announcing, then refereeing, then wrestling. Like I had to go through like a year and a half of stuff, and all the while you're training 3 times a week by just learning how to fall on your back. And at one point then it's like, okay, we're not going to make you the young boy anymore, but you still have to do some of the stuff. You can't, like, it's not, oh, you don't have to set up the ring every time, but you got to at least help with the entranceway, or you got to you got to learn how to do it. And we call it paying your dues.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a team effort.
It's a team effort
to make sure that the people on the team are gonna going to show up for the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Right.
So
right. And that's exactly like our mindset too. It's like, you know, we don't, you know, we joke about, you know, making people carry the equipment and get
us coffee.
Get the coffee and things like that. But like, no, like none of that. Like I still bring in equipment. I still do all that stuff. And I'm at a point where I have 6 people kind of like under me on the team that I could be like, hey, go do this. But like, no, like we're a team. I don't care that I'm the co-founder. We're still a team. Right. So we work together and we try to help people. And that's really all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say in the wrestling world, I was trained by a guy that had 33 years of experience. He still drives the truck to bring the ring. Like he's still getting everything set up and stuff. But you guys have a couple things coming up. The first thing that we wanted to talk about was you guys have a spooky Christmas presentation at the Russell Library in Middletown on December 9th, 3 p.m. Walk us through what are you guys going to be talking about there, and like how do you set up for presentations and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we actually investigated the Russell Library in Middletown, and it's a pretty high graded haunted library.
Okay.
So we captured some really good evidence there. We're gonna be presenting that, but we're also going to be presenting our entire investigative process, how we do what we do and why we do it. You're going to meet all the team members. You know, maybe we show some equipment, things like that. And then we're going to showcase some of our best evidence that we've gotten over the years from all different kinds of cases around Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York. So we're going to show all that. And because it's December, we're going to hopefully have some nice Christmas decor up and make it a little spooky at the same time.
I thought you guys were going to start talking about Krampus or something like that.
I've actually had that. I want to do a presentation on all those like urban legends and, you know, myths and stories and things like that. I think that would be really cool.
Oh, that's so much fun.
It would. And follow up to that. So cryptids and things like that, how does that factor into the paranormal? Because I personally am very into cryptids, not necessarily because I think they're real. I think there's always validity to things like that. Like somebody saw something. But I don't necessarily think that it's Mothman.
I was going to say, no, you truthfully believe Mothman's a real thing.
I don't. I just really love the legend.
Wait, they recently found another instance of Mothman? I didn't even hear about that.
They're always
another sighting
stuff.
Yeah,
they're always reporting stuff about Mothman. Like it goes in waves. It's like for 10 years it'll die down, and then
forget about Mothman, and then all of a sudden,
Mothman.
He's back. So for cryptids, we've gotten a lot of calls over the years about people wanting us to investigate like a cryptid sighting. You know, my thing was like, listen, if I could get paid to camp out in the middle of your woods for like a week straight, like I would totally do it, but like that's not feasible. So we tend to not investigate those. And actually we've been in contact a lot over the years with the New England branch of like MUFON.
Okay.
For UFO. Familiar. It's like UFO sightings. They're that
okay.
You know, they're the really nerdy guys that investigate all the UFO stuff. And you know, they have like weekly meetings to discuss sightings and stuff. And, you know, I kind of was never a big fan of like the UFO stuff until I literally saw one. My wife and I were driving like on the highway somewhere, and we just saw this thing in the sky literally just go straight across the sky super fast. Wow. And like we didn't say anything to each other. And then like 5 minutes later, we're like, did you see that before? And we were both like, yeah, I wasn't going to say anything though. But just the distance and how fast this thing moved was like, I was convinced.
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing. Like, how am I supposed to investigate like a UFO sighting?
Right.
Like, so it's the same with cryptids. Like, I love it. I'd be all for it if there was a way for us to feasibly do it, but there's just not.
Yeah.
Discovery Channel.
Right. Like we can get a sponsor that'll like pay for us to like go sit out somewhere. Like I'm all.
Oh yeah, I'll do it.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Listen, call up any Texas gun company. I promise you they'll sponsor this for like a season.
Right. You know, and my thing too is like, how come all this like Bigfoot footage? Like I don't know if you guys saw like the recent one that they saw apparently, but it's always from like a mile away. It's always
blurry.
like it's blurry. And I'm like, we have like 5K cameras now. Like, why aren't we getting
We have stabilizers.
Right.
Yeah.
Image stabilizers.
That's always my thing. Is like, why is he always blurry?
Well,
And that's the same thing with like demon footage. We always get like footage
Yeah.
from people about like they're seeing demons and stuff, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
it's grainy, it's blurry. You're shooting into
Yeah.
like a reflective surface. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's
It
rules from
always
common sense things.
It always looks like they shot it through, like, you know how in elementary school they made you create like a camera out of an oatmeal can.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. That it was shot from an oatmeal can.
Yes.
Right.
Speaking of demons, so how much activity do you think when people are describing something as demonic or evil, how much of that do you think is sort of that demonic entity versus either people bringing on their own energy or maybe just not effectively communicating with a spirit that has passed who's just like trying to get a message across?
Yeah, so Eli loves to quote that Chris's old quote, which is that demonic hauntings typically are like 0.001% of everything. Like it's super, super rare.
Mhm.
I typically describe demonic entities in 3 ways. One is that they're literal beings that, you know, fallen angels that were cast out from heaven and thrown into hell. 2 is that they're literally like a lower vibrational energy. You know, that you attract that negative energy, you can attract this demon. And the third really is it's possible that demons are simply forces of nature that are destructive by nature.
Yeah.
And I always equate that to like a tornado, right? A tornado is destructive. It's a force of nature. It could kill you,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't call a tornado evil.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's just destructive by nature. So maybe demonic entities are the same. Maybe they are like literal forces of nature, energies, whatever,
Yeah.
but they're chaotic, they're destructive. And if you tap into them, then obviously you're going to have chaos in your life.
Right.
So there's kind of like that's the 3 ways I kind of describe them, and which one you believe is up to you. But in our experience, that's probably the most accurate, is that they're simply just forces of nature that you can tap into or not. Because there's people that perform demonolatry, which is worship of demons, where they actually do rituals and pray to them to get help, and they believe that they're for good. The more we study our history, we also know that the Catholic Church literally demonized a lot of these pagan gods that were used for good things. So with that being said too, I believe we have had about 2 demonic cases, which is super rare. Because when we formed the team, Chris and I were like, we're not going to do any of that. Like, that's not our thing. And then sure enough, like that year, we got one case that we were on for a year and a half.
Wow.
And the way that we got this case was like, we were just clearly meant to get the case, because I was on Reddit one day and some guy from Seattle, Washington messaged me and was like, hey, I have a case for you in Connecticut. And I was like, how did you even get my username? Like, how do you even know I'm from Connecticut? I have no idea how he got the case 3,000 miles away. I don't know that.
Yeah.
But we got this case. Him and I went out there. He flew down. We went up there. Something was just off. That's all. The only way I could describe it was something was not right. And on the way home, my tire blew out on the highway. First time that ever happened. And when I brought it into the mechanic, it was like a knife slash about that wide in the side of the tire. He actually said, oh, someone knifed your tire. And I said, no, it blew out when I was driving. And he was like, that's weird. So yeah, again, whether it was coincidence or not, I can't tell you, but it was just, that's the first and only time that ever happened to me. And it was when I was coming home from that case.
Wow.
Yeah, there was also like, he got a text message from like a random number that said, ha ha ha, you're calling Paranormal Dave or something like that. And this was like 3 days before I ever got the case.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Like weird stuff.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so that case was one of those cases where like it was 3 of us in the house. Eli wasn't on the team yet. It was me, Chris, and our other investigator, Melissa. And it was just us in the house, no pets, clients were gone. it's like 3 a.m, and we would
Witching hour.
say, right, we would say, okay, knock on the wall once for yes answers or twice for no or something like that. And I shit you not, we had like at least 4 questions answered by this entity knocking on a wall so loud it was like a baseball bat.
Oh, wow.
Like you're sitting in a pitch black room, again, no one in the house, nothing.
Yeah.
And then you can ask a question and then literally right after you hear boom, boom, or just one knock for no. I'm like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
That's
But
insane.
it's not like the movies where, the spinning heads and the vomit and
Right.
Yeah.
crucifix is turning. It's
Yeah.
subtle. It's like, you've said the Lord's Prayer a million times in your life, but then when you're in that moment, you feel a presence and now you don't know the words at all.
Yeah.
You start doubting yourself. You start doubting your faith. You start doubting each other. Chris had an experience there where him and I actually were like, he was furious at me for no reason other than the entity was basically trying to turn us on each other. Like, how do you get these people out of the house and away from you? Well, you turn the two co-founders on each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was like these little like mind games and these little tricks that the entities were playing that we eventually caught on to and was like, wait a minute. Yeah. So it's demonic entities are a lot more subtle, but they're definitely very rare. But everyone's got the Satan in their house, right? Like that's the most common claim. It's like the devil's
everybody.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they don't want to believe that it's just some random guy being like, "Don't mess up this wall."
Yeah.
Like,
what's crazy too, though, is like people say they call us in and they say like, God, I don't want there to be a demon here, and it's like, well, we don't have any evidence that there is anything malevolent here at all, and then they get disappointed.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though they're like, oh yeah, you guys got to come in and solve this problem, and then it's like, okay, well, we're giving you the answer right now. And then they're like, oh, well, I still think it's like Satan. And I'm like,
like I was hoping it was a demon.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time with that, I'll say is that they want something to blame their problems on.
Yeah.
Like they're down on their luck, like they're gambling and they lost all their money. They are having relationship problems and they want something they can blame all those things on. So they said there must be a demon here. The demon must be possessing us because there's no reason why like I should be fighting with my wife like this. Even though like we find out that he's out of the house 6 days a week and he's at the bar, like talking to other women. So
sometimes the demon is you.
Sometimes the demon is you.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, sometimes the demon. Is it okay if we trademark that and we sell that on merch? Okay.
Trademark.
When you go into one of those rare situations where something might be demonic or malevolent, how do you protect yourself?
I think it's different for each of us. Eli is our team Jew. So he does his he does his own thing. And we joke too because I'm like 1% Jewish. So like I say like I'm in the club.
He's my brother.
That's like me. I'm 3% Italian. So
Well,
so you gotta use your hands.
I use my hands all the time.
So I think each of us has our kind of different beliefs. I was raised Roman Catholic. That's kind of like my foundation. Eli's Jewish. We have a couple of people who are Lutheran on the team. So everyone does their own thing. But as the co-founder for me, I always I combine prayers and meditation, and I ask for protection over me, my team, my family, my friends, because I don't, knock on wood, I've never brought anything home. I've never had an attachment, and I attribute that to my faith and that my 110% conviction that nothing is allowed to affect me or my life in any way. I also wholeheartedly believe that my higher power puts ECPS in these cases, in these homes for a reason. If we weren't meant to get that case, then we wouldn't.
That's fair.
So I just stand by that. And I mean, so far to this day, it's worked. But prayers, meditation for me, I even when we get there, I always ask that protection be continued. And I ask my higher power for permission, actually, before I even step in the house, because anything that I can do psychically is because of my higher power. It's you know, not coming from me necessarily. So I just ask permission to be that vessel, that messenger that can help this family. I think that's a big thing too, is just like, again, you're taking your ego out of it.
Yeah.
You're giving it away to your higher power, and you're letting kind of them do it. You know, Eli, I don't know if there's anything specific that you do.
Yeah, I do those things as well. Chris, taught us a lot of things for protection as well, like imagining like a circle of light, encircling all of us, and keeping that in that light. The other thing I do is when I go home, David talks about intent. It may seem crazy to someone from the outside, but when I'm in my car going home, I say, you cannot follow me home.
Yeah.
You cannot, take a ride, back to where I'm going. You're not allowed anywhere near me. So if you're in here right now, you need to leave.
Yeah.
And sort of having that foot down, having that intent. And I've never had anything follow me home over 4 years.
Yeah, no, that's something that I'm a huge believer in, is intention.
That's why we don't mess with like any kind of spirit boards. We don't do any of that stuff, just because like you never know what's on the other side of that kind of stuff.
Right.
And when you start dabbling in that, it's very hard to know for sure what's actually there and stuff. But the other thing that you guys have coming up is a Shanley Hotel. You're doing a live stream investigation it's Saturday, December 16th. Tell us about how you guys came about trying to do live stream investigations and stuff like that. Is this your first one, and along those lines?
So it's actually kind of something new that we're trying. We're trying to figure out the best way to live stream things, because especially when we go into a lot of private residences, we either don't have good Wi-Fi, they're in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, well, how do you then keep that reception open? We did the Bond Hotel in Hartford, Connecticut, which is a historic hotel with a lot of deaths, and the basement is huge. But as soon as you go in the basement, you lose all reception. So how do we then take people with us? So it's something that we're working on and we're trying to get better at. We just invested a lot of money in some really, really nice cameras. So we're hoping to kind of up our quality and up our technological game, if you will.
Yep.
So it's not the first one we've done, but it's the first one that I think we're really going to be planning out and trying to, I don't know, make really high quality so people can kind of really tune in with us. I think the plan is we have the whole hotel to ourselves. So we're all going to be in separate rooms, and all the rooms are haunted. So I think it's even going to be interesting to live stream separately from our rooms. So it's like we're doing separate investigations, but you can watch us all at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think it's going to be really interesting. I don't know. I think these guys, they've been laughing about it because they have plans to put me in a particular room for some reason. So we'll kind of see what comes of that. But I'm excited for it. I've stayed in usually I'm the one who gets put in the most haunted rooms because of the psychic thing. So
yeah,
I was gonna say you're kind of the guinea pig on that one.
yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Well,
Yeah,
they're putting me in. I'm being put in the bad room too, so you're not alone.
No, I'm really looking forward to tuning into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very excited.
We'll keep promoting that kind of stuff too, and
yeah, thank you.
On our socials and
Yeah,
stuff
of course.
And the other reason for live streaming too was, we used to have a Patreon, and we sort of shut that down. And we were trying to figure out ways of engaging our audience as much as possible, because so many people, we started like a chat, for our loyal fans. And so many people were like, when can I go on an investigation? When can I go on an investigation?
Yeah.
It's not possible. Like, we have 7 people, which is more than we've ever had. There's been points where it's just me, David, and Chris, during the 4 years that I've been on the team. And it's just not possible to bring on more people. So we were trying to figure out how do we bring them along with us.
Right.
And so this is a way for them to come along with us, to ask questions, and us answer in real time. And it's been good. It's been pretty successful so far.
You can kind of tell us like what to do on the live stream too, right?
Yeah.
Like, who should go do that solo session down in the basement by themselves?
Yeah.
Like, let's take a vote. And usually we're all going to vote Lindsay because she's the one who's scared of everything. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. That's such a good way to engage your audience.
Absolutely.
and have more people be able to experience that paranormal.
Yeah.
So do you guys have sort of a dream location that you'd like to investigate?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one.
I still, and it's relatively close. I actually really want to go to Gettysburg.
Oh, you've been, yeah.
Chris and I have, it was one of our things where we were like, we have to get to Gettysburg. Just, I mean, one, the history, right? Like seeing the battlefields is, I'm sure, like amazing. And the other thing too is like it's just supposedly so haunted. There's so many spirits and lost souls, and I think for me that would be amazing. A lot of the other places, I don't know, like Eli went to Lizzie Borden house and there was really nothing. It's kind of overdone. I recently got invited to the Conjuring house, but I'm not, super into that. Like, so I think it's more the historical places, like the asylums, the Gettysburg, different battlefields. I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah, so I grew up 45 minutes east of Gettysburg. I was surrounded by it. Like we had a in my high school we had a Civil War class that you could take.
Oh, nice.
That was just a Civil War history class, and like a lot of it focused on Gettysburg. We did field trips all the time there, and I've had friends of mine who have seen stuff and experienced stuff. I will say, be prepared to just feel completely surrounded.
Yeah.
Like you can be the only one standing there, but you feel enclosed almost. Like there's just so much. And what I would say is take a tour beforehand and know where Pickett's charge is, and then run Pickett's charge. You probably get some stuff out of that. Like just as somebody who is a paranormal enthusiast and history buff, I think that would be something like just to run the field where he did his charge, because that's where the most people died on the third day, and it's an incredible place. I highly recommend.
Eli, put it out there that we're doing Gettysburg next year.
I'm writing that down.
I'm convinced. That's an interesting thing you bring up too, is the reenactment type of investigating. That's something that we do often, actually.
Very cool.
Like there's the Wyndham Inn in Wyndham, Connecticut. We're the only team that have ever been allowed in there, and we found that I guess there's an infamous spirit of Elizabeth Shaw there. She was, I think, the first woman hanged in Connecticut.
Okay.
Back in like the 1700s, and she abandoned her child in the middle of the woods, so that's why she was hanged. But she basically didn't have a trial at all. They just hanged her. And we are currently working with the Historical Society to try to figure out where she might be buried, and where exactly she was hanged, and where she walked to the gallows, essentially. So part of our investigation is finding that information out, and then we're actually going to walk as much as we can and see if I could pick up anything on, well, I guess any more information based on that walk. Because if we can find something like that, I mean, not only does nobody know where she's buried right now, but it's so like we could figure that out, that's huge. I know Chris also, when he was alive, he assisted in a missing persons case in Florida.
Okay.
So he actually was asked by a friend or something who was down there. There was this 22-year-old man who went missing or something, and they suspected foul play. Chris tuned in, he did his thing, and actually found out that he wrote down like mile marker 18 or something. And when they looked by the river, there's a mile marker 18. They found like his clothing or something.
Wow.
So then when he kept going, Chris kind of put the story together. It was Chris believed that this guy was murdered over a girl. And there was some drugs or something that was involved in that. And he was killed and he was thrown in the river. And eventually they found his body. But what's crazy is that Chris believed that there was corruption in the police department down there because it was like a small town.
Right.
And the sheriff actually called Chris and started asking questions about like where he was getting his information from and stuff. And Chris was like, I got a family, I got kids, like I'm not getting any more involved in this.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
But like they found his body and everything based on some of the stuff that Chris said. So that's weird.
Amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's, a lot of people talk about the psychic cold cases and using psychics and stuff. And a lot of people, there's not much to it, but I can legitimately say Chris was definitely one example that was legitimate.
Wow. Yeah. That's really cool. Now, Eli, over to you. Dream location of investigating.
So I think there's two places. One of them I've been to already. I'd love to go back to Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which for anybody that doesn't know, was an old tuberculosis hospital where over 100,000 people died there. They even have a body shoot where they would bring people down because they were afraid to show all the dead bodies passing by the patients and them, getting depressed about that. So that was a great. I love doing that. The second place, which I've never been to, is the Winchester Mystery House.
Yes.
Yes. It just, it might be over commercialized now, but just the very fact that Sarah Winchester was building these stairways to nowhere, these doors that wouldn't open, and just building for I think 30-40 years, constantly building so that like the activity wouldn't get to her and sort of kill her. It's so intriguing to me.
Yeah, that's one of the places I want to go really bad because I feel like having that fearful energy that she had when she was building this house, there has to be something that fueled that, and also that probably fueled other activity as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the Winchester Mystery House is just a fascinating case of psychological torture upon oneself.
Yeah.
Like it's what it comes down to. It's like I don't know how you live with that, and like it just I don't know. I would have had to move.
Yeah.
I would have moved. I don't know if I would have stayed there at all.
Plus she had bottomless money too, so
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They say money can't buy happiness, but it can buy you 1 billion rooms to trap your demons. So as we wind down here, obviously you have the Christmas presentation at the Russell Library, Saturday, December 9th at 3 p.m. You have the Shanley Hotel live stream investigation. That'll be mainly on your Facebook, you said, correct?
Correct.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Check these guys out on Facebook, Eastern Connecticut Paranormal Society, on Threads and Instagram at Eastern CT Paranormal, and visit their website, easternctparanormal.com. Guys, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and doing this with us. This was great. Great to pick your brain, and we'd love to have you on again at some point too, just to continue our conversations.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having us. We'll always come back. We love talking about this stuff, so we'll talk for like hours. So that's why you have to cut us off.
Yeah. No, listen.
I'm glad you did.
Listen, I'm the same way about pro wrestling. If you get me started, I don't stop. So,
I love it.
You guys hang tight. Let's do our outro here, and then we'll continue a little bit of a extra conversation after we turn off the camera.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds
you guys so much. I'm Damian.
I'm Ashley.
And this has been Casually Die Hard. Bye.